Ghettobaby is the new second half of the full-length project that Kevin Abstract is dropping. Arizona Baby apparently is an entire album from what he said, and Ghettobaby is just a second half of that. So this second half has probably spawned a lot more fanfare just because of certain nostalgic sentiments that are littered throughout here, and certain callbacks to things that people thought might have been dead but have constantly been speculating over. There's always that part of a fan base when it's a group such as Brockhampton that's really big. You're gonna have part of that fan base that's always gonna be wondering about stuff, especially like the Amir Van allegations or the Puppy album or the Best Years of Our Lives, certain albums that haven't like seen the light of day or didn't get finished or something along those lines. Now here we have three more songs. We have Corpus Christi, Baby Boy, and Mississippi. So Corpus Christi is the first song, and it is probably one of the heavier songs on this entire project that features Kevin talking about almost everything from Amir Van to how his family kind of treats him. And throughout it all, the main line that I enjoy is him when he says, "When it's my time to not see tomorrow, I hope that you can forgive me for any pain that I caused." And that really just strikes so heavy, because it's like, damn, like he's done so many, like he even talks about how like he's done so much good. Dom himself was on Twitter, like literally being one of the greatest friends of all time, just talking up like how amazing Kevin is. And here's Kevin himself kind of almost bearing all and saying like, look, if I caused you pain in the past, I am sorry. And that guilt that weighs on him is constantly permeating throughout this entire like second half of the album. And it's really heavy, like, because it hits you right in the heart. It's like, damn, like he doesn't even really like see himself as this great god, because typically what happens with celebrities and especially musicians is that they get idolized, and typically we look at them like this, but they're still human at the end of the day. And I think Kevin's really hitting on this human aspect of not necessarily looking at yourself as the greatest. Now some people may be cocky or confident or have a different range, but here it's just kind of talking about all these different things that have kind of passed, these ghosts that seem to kind of haunt Kevin. I mean, you got his family. He talks about his sister constantly like trying to talk crap on him on social media because he won't shout out his niece. People that potentially might be threatening his life because his brother is assuming that for some reason Kevin is trying to threaten his life. And again, you know, if you go back to Arizona Baby, he kind of touched on this a little bit with the fact that, you know, his mom is still working at Sonics. And it's like, people from the outside may see that and be like, why would you let your mom still work at a Sonics? Why would you let her be in this like situation when you make all this money and stuff? From not only that, but his friends or his past best friends. I don't know their relationship, so I don't want to comment on it, but essentially, from what I understand, when Brockhampton had first started, Amir was one of the first original members, and he was like one of the closest people to Kevin Abstract, which is also paralleled when he talks to Dom a little bit later. But pretty much on this, Kevin like just, it felt almost unprompted, but it was kind of like a shock to the system of like, oh man, because I think basically when it happened, everybody was just questioning, like everyone's just throwing out these questions and these theories, like what's happened, like do they still talk to Amir? And there's like different kind of sides of the fandom that kind of like go at each other, because some people feel like Amir was wrong, there's some people feel like people hope that he's doing better. There's all kinds of different things that go on, but to hear the leader of Brockhampton pretty much like sit there and go, I wonder if my potentially former, I'm not sure how close they were, but former best friend, former friend, does he think of me? Is he doing okay? Like those type of thoughts are kind of like still in Kevin's mind. So we get a moment to like see, because this is a lot of introspection that really happens, especially in this song. And it's like kind of not dark, but just kind of like a tired and not worried, but kind of just exhausted Kevin kind of just navigating through this feeling of like wondering this. And then he immediately apologizes to Dom, because it seems like this is something that Dom has probably tried to coach him and help him through. And he basically says, Dom, like, I'm sorry that I'm like putting it out on the front lawn. And the front lawn is basically us, the people who consume this music, and the fans who want to know all the juicy details that are hiding potentially, even though for people, like for fans, it's like juicy details and drama, but for them it's this experience of losing someone close to them and having to basically evict them from like something that they all made together, and that person was a key contributor to that, and then having to say like you have to get out, and also knowing that that person wasn't telling the full truth. All of these different things kind of just weighing on Kevin's mind, and I'm sure weighed on the group's mind. For Kevin to meditate on that obviously is a bit of a tricky thing, especially in a song when people are going to immediately go speculate, and Dom was very fast to be like, look, I'm not here to talk about this. Y'all need to pay attention to the music. So we're going to get back to that. However, that was just very important to talk about those lines, especially with the childhood dreams fading away, talking about like sort of using the imagery of like Michael Jackson videos and Tyler Perry movies as to, like, to go back to that childhood and talk about how, like, again, childhood dreams fade away, wondering if even the money is going to be the last thing he knows, as like he feels like it'll get to a point where it'll be just him and money, and his day one friends will be off with money because he's helped them get deals and stuff, but he kind of is pondering, will he be alone? And it's just kind of like this very sullen beginning and a sullen intro, and it's very clear that this second half is going to basically feature a lot more softer but still hard to deal with emotions that can come, where Arizona Baby had a lot of frantic energy and that sort of like whittled down towards the end with Georgia. Here is the other way around, kind of, where it starts out sullen and very kind of sad, and it progresses as time goes forward. So we get into Baby Boy, which I thought was my favorite song, but now I'm not sure because of Mississippi. But oh yeah, before I do that, Corpus Christi also really has this kind of skeletal, almost kind of numb sounding like guitar that kind of just strums along as Kevin kind of narrates and talks about these different things weighing on him. Now, it does feature a wavy kind of spacey voice with some synths that come in and out, but for the most part the guitar is the main component of this song, and the way it's composed really does characterize and again gives that sound of that kind of sullen thinking and wondering like about the future. Now we get into Baby Boy, which sort of takes a sort of brighter note with the puppy snippet chorus being the kind of main attraction, if you will, of, I want to say, this album. I think Baby Boy is going to be like the most listened to single, but Mississippi is low-key underrated already. However, again, with Baby Boy, it takes a brighter note, even though he's still meditating on those things and wondering like how he got through it, like how he discovered truths, but those were still false, and how these different things don't really are not really matching up. And again, going back to him basically saying these valleys were so low, but these mountains were so high, and it's kind of just talking about how like emotions change once we're out of a situation and we have that perspective, we have that experience behind us to really help anchor a better perspective on that situation. Now, again, it's a much brighter note because you have that very sweet chorus, and then talking about like how his boyfriend was the only one to really be there for him, even God leaving him. And he even mentions this in Corpus Christi too, how it was like a miracle that his boyfriend stayed by him. His boyfriend is not just like a trophy wife, trophy husband type archetype where it's just like, oh, Kevin's a rapper and he got like a cute guy to be with him. Nah, there's a real like depth to their relationship, and I think what Kevin is doing here is basically illustrating like, hey, this guy isn't just like some random dude at like a date, like he really does matter to my life. And it's really beautiful to see Kevin express that throughout all of these songs, even like, again, even on a sullen song like Corpus Christi. Baby Boy has a much more lively aesthetic, but again, it still remains kind of relaxed and not too abrasive. Again, there's a bit of a swell towards the end, and there even is a little trumpet at the very end. Here, it's a nice, beautiful sentiment that really comes through sort of as him kind of still navigating that anxiety, that guilt, but also appreciating someone who has really helped him through that. And again, I think that the Let's Get Married chorus slash puppy snippet being put on here again really fits the narrative well. It wasn't like it was just thrown in. Now, the piano part of that was removed. I just realized that. Someone mentioned it on Reddit. I was like, okay, I get it, because it seems like it's like going for something else. But again, that was a part of a different album altogether, and for this narrative and for this song, it fits pretty damn well. So Baby Boy is a very enjoyable song as well, and it features a lot more optimism and hope. so it hits a lot less harder. But overall, this is a much heavier album. Now, the final song, Mississippi. This one I want to say is my favorite just because it's a lot more sonically diverse than the other ones. That's not to say like I didn't enjoy the guitars on Baby Boy / Corpus Christi. They were very well done, and there, like I said, there's a lot of trumpets, synth waves in here, and they're also in Mississippi. I think Mississippi just has a lot more sonic details. There's little bells that come in, the auto-tune of his voice as he like will say something and then fade out, and the way in the second half of Mississippi this piano comes in and it gives us this like brighter feeling, even though he's like arguing with his at the time. The way that he talks about it is sort of from this past angle where he's asking him, do you want to be my boyfriend? Because what it starts with is Kevin is trying to basically kind of hide part of himself away. It sort of resembles, at least to me, and I'm not a doctor with a PhD, nor am I saying that Kevin has this, but it sort of resembles imposter syndrome, the starting like chorus in which he talks about like, don't see me, or what do I do when I cry alone? Like that sort of resembles this. He doesn't want you to see him in this light because he worries that he may lose you. And that is something that a lot of people, I'm sure, deal with, where it's kind of this thing where people say like, oh, you're so talented and you really do this well. And again, that idea of idolizing a celebrity, I'm sure Kevin has a lot of stands, a lot of fans who think he's like this perfect person, and he kind of just looks at himself in this sort of distorted, wavy view, which is also characterized throughout the song with this distorted, wavy voice that will come in every now and again. And he doesn't have that same view of himself. He's racked with guilt over the kind of dissonance between him and his family, the way that the Amir thing went, other like feeling like he isn't doing enough, and he's still wrestling with that constantly. And that must be one of the hardest battles ever, but it doesn't mean he can't get through it. And that's why I think I really like the second half of Mississippi. While he's comparing his boyfriend to Mississippi Sunshine, and that's really cool, in a more general sense, if you like pull it back from just that like nice sweet compliment and sentiment, it is like sort of that optimism again. Like his boyfriend kind of is like sort of almost his guardian angel that kind of brings him that hope and optimism. So he not only does he talk about the bond that they have, but he characterizes it through the, again, that piano coming in and bringing this optimism. Now it's way more prevalent in Baby Boy because it has this more joyful, sweet tone to it that really feels like things are, you know, just you're kind of like in that moment, and it's not, like I said before, the hype of the moment or like the excitement, but just the pure joy, pure happiness is kind of located within Baby Boy, while Mississippi is still wrestling with anxiety and things of that nature. So overall, the second half of Arizona Baby, known as Ghettobaby, is a lot more somber, a little bit more sullen, and it's a lot heavier. However, I think that so far this probably is enjoyable in the format that has been presented. If I had to rank them, I probably at the moment would pick Ghettobaby, but that's just kind of a little bit nostalgia goggles because that puppy snippet freaking took me. Also, again, just the sounds of the way the Mississippi is and the way that Baby Boy is, and even Corpus Christi to an extent. I really enjoy the progression of sounds here, and the fact that where Arizona Baby had frantic energy, this one is a lot more calm, and it features just the sound really does perfectly kind of describe that feeling that Kevin is navigating. The themes of loss and frustration and anguish and anxiety are very prevalent throughout this second half, and it really serves as a heavy reminder of how, you know, fragile life can be, even for those who we consider at the top. Overall, it's pretty great. I think that I can't wait for the final half of this, but these three songs were wonderful. So if you haven't, I will give it a listen. Ghettobaby. Well, this guy says, no matter what kind of baby you are, you can always be a great adult. Just remember that growing is difficult and hard, and it doesn't stop after you turn 18. It doesn't stop when you turn 50. It doesn't stop no matter wherever the prime of life people consider to be the prime of life is. It is a constant thing. So never give up. Please, please chase all your wishes, and you'll be great. Have a great day.